And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Shut the door! All right, now that we're alone, let's talk about Eminent Domain. Hey, psst. A couple months ago, they paid me to do a preview of this game. Okay, now I'm reviewing it. Oh, is that breaking all kinds of reviewer rules? Well, whatever. I'm going to give you my straight-up opinion on the game. It's the truth of it. I played the game back when they asked me to preview it, and I did enjoy it, and I was glad that they put it up on Kickstarter, and I'm glad that it got printed. I wasn't very impressed with the components back then, but of course that was because it was a cheapo prototype copy. But now look at this thing. It's amazing, like beautiful. I really like the pieces. They got these little spaceships in here that are used to count warfare points, and it's totally unnecessary, really. They could use cubes. Thank you for not. It adds a lot to the game. But do I like the game as much as I did back when I played it in prototype form? Let's look. Alright, a quick rundown of the game. There's 5 stacks of cards in the middle of the table. Survey, Warfare, Colonize, Produce/Trade. That's actually 2 different cards put together. And Research. A player is going to have a deck of these cards. You get a couple of each, plus you get 1 Politics card. You're going to shuffle this deck of cards, and then you're going to be drawing cards from this, and then taking your turn. So, you have a hand limit of 5 cards at the beginning of the game, and you'll be starting with a random planet in front of you. This is what the planet looks like. Pretty. But at the beginning, you have not yet found that planet. On your turn, and you have these turn phase cards to help you remember, and in fact, at the beginning of the game, one of them is the start player. You hand them out. It's a pretty good way to determine start player. Anyway, on your turn, you are allowed to play one of the cards from your hand as an action card. See, each card has action and roll, and so you play that card as an action card. If you play a survey as an action card, you draw 2 cards from your deck. If you play warfare, you can attack a planet or collect a fighter. When we attack a planet, we look at that planet. That planet needs 2 fighters to attack it, which means if I have 2 fighters, I discard both of those fighters and turn it over, and I now control that planet. Collecting a fighter is simply what it says. You collect one of these really nice looking fighters, and they have them in larger denominations. Oh, they need to make a game with these fighters in. But anyway, that's what warfare action. Colonize. You can settle a planet or add one to a colony. When you colonize, you will take the card from your hand and put it underneath the planet. You are starting to colonize that planet. Each planet needs a certain amount of colonization before it can be turned over. Once you settle it, you get those cards back in your hand, and then you turn the planet over. So planets can be either colonized or settled, and the numbers on planets are often different. See, this one needs 5 warfare, but 6 colonization. So they can be different. When you play this one as an action, you can either produce a resource. Some planets that you will have a spot for a resource, like this one here, and you can produce a resource, or you can trade that resource in for a victory point. And the game comes with a certain amount of victory points that you will take when you do actions like that. And the research action, you can remove 2 of the cards in your hand from the game. So if you like to thin your deck out, that's what research does. So the first thing you do on your turn, play an action card. The second thing you do is play a roll card. This is what you do then. Now you're not looking at the cards in your hand. You're going to take one of these cards here, and you are going to take that and add it to your deck, basically, but you will take the roll action on that card. So if you take the roll and you have any cards with that same icon on them, you can play those cards to boost it. Everybody else can also do that roll, but they don't get the benefit of it. You do, and they can't boost it. Only you can. So for example, surveying. You are allowed to look at the planet cards here, -1. The person who's the leader, the person who picks the card, can look at 1 extra card. So if I play survey, and I play 2 survey symbols, 2 minus 1 is 1, so I can look at 1 card, but since I'm the leader, I can look at 2. Anybody else who plays the survey cards, they can play cards from their hand, and they can look at things. But so I take 2, and I say, okay, which one of these planets do I want? This one's worth more victory points at the end of the game, and this one here is, oh man, that one needs 6 warfare. And so I can pick, and then I put that planet in front of me. I have not yet found a planet. I need to settle it or warfare against it. So that's how you search for planets. In warfare, for each warfare card to play with a symbol, I can collect fighters, or if I'm the leader, I can attack a planet. And by the way, I was incorrect previously. Other people can play up multiple cards too, and boost the action. For colonizing, I can add as many colonized cards as I want to a planet, and the leader can settle a planet. If he has enough colonist things there, he can settle it. You'll notice that some of these role actions are very similar to the actions, but the roll also gives you the card in your hand, and you can do a lot more with the roll usually. For produce/trade, I can produce multiple resources for every of these symbols I have, or I can trade as many resources for 1 point each. And then the research one. Now this is one that actually is a bit of a game changer. I can buy a technology. Now most technologies, there's 3 piles of them here, most technologies require a specific planet, sometimes 2 of that planet for the upper end ones. And then they need a certain amount of research cards to be played from your hand. Mostly 3s, but once you get to the higher ones, 5s and maybe 7. Each of these technologies, most of them are basically upgraded of these cards here. So for example, this is improved trade. Instead of regular trade, instead of having to give a good to get a victory point, I just get a victory point. Influence. Improved survey, instead of drawing 2 cards, it's 3 cards. And these cards also have extra icons here, so they can be used with multiple cards to boost multiple cards. And a few of these cards are also worth victory points at the end of the game, like this one here. And these have different special actions, and you're allowed to pick them up and look through them at any time. Some of them are called permanent, and they're actually put in front of you, and a few of them have double sides. So when you get that card, you pick, do I want abundance or do I want fertile ground? I mean, look how many icons that gives you permanently in front of you. Or do I want this one, planets you settle or attack come into play with the resource slots full? Which one do I want? And there's some neat things about researching and getting these. The game will progress until one of these decks is gone for 2 or 3 players, or 2 decks are gone for 4 players. At that point, you finish out the round, and whoever has the most points wins. Points come from planets, from research cards, and for those who have collected these by trading goods. Person with the most points is the winner. Well, I like it as much more, I think, than when I played it. Components really make a difference. I mean, I liked it before, but now it's just like, poof! It's space. It's, all this stuff going on. The warfare, well, it still didn't feel that much like warfare, but it was still pretty cool. Now, I think that I am completely sold on this as a 2-player game. Yes, it works with 3 and 4, and that's fun, and I'm sure there will be an expansion to take it to 5 and 6, but wow, with 2-player, it really pops. Just playing the game and trying to outdo the other person, it seems like the warfare and the colonize actions and the technology actions are very balanced. I went down a straight, as powerful as I could technology aspect in one game and was very happy with the rewards, but got a little nervous as the other players were, running circles around me for a while with technology, but back and forth. It reminds me of Race for the Galaxy. It reminds me of Glory of the Realm. It reminds me of a deck building game, but it's not enough of any of them, and there's some unique things in here that I haven't seen in games before. One thing I like is that while it's a deck building game, it doesn't feel like a deck building game. Or I guess I should be more precise and say it doesn't feel like the Dominion flavor of deck building games. And while I like those games, it's good to see this being taken in a different direction. This wasn't about building up my deck as much as it was about choosing the right action at the right time and trying not to help my opponent or opponents out as much as I could. The space on top of that, with the tremendous artwork and production, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just icing on the cake. This is an excellent game. Check it out.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.